Let's move on to Nicola, who's in Leicester. Nicola, hello. What would you like to ask Penny?
Oh, hi. Well, my question is about Penny's record on women's rights. So, Penny, when you were Minister for Women and Equalities, you wanted to change the law that would allow any man to change the sex on his birth certificate to say that he'd been born female. No doctors, no surgery, just on his say-so alone. But when Liz Truss took over, she said no, that checks and balances must stay to safeguard women's rights. So, Penny, my question is, if you become PM, would you reverse this and make sex self-ID law to let anyone swap the sex on their birth certificate?
So I've never supported self-ID. There are some people that socially transition, but what we were looking at was the Gender Recognition Act, and it's a process that people go through. There was clamour to separate that out from healthcare, and I disagreed with that. So what you've said, Nicola, is not a reflection of my position at any time. I think that we needed to do some things to make it easier for people to access services. The waiting lists to access services were a couple of years. There were things that we could do to help people actually have their documents like driving licenses and passports actually in the same gender. Terrible problems for people when that didn't happen. But you have not characterised my position. And I support also women-only spaces. I like the fact that in England we have refuges for women and trans women. I don't support the scheme in Scotland where all refuges have to provide places for trans people.
But you did say in the House of Commons that trans women are women. Do you still believe that?
In law, some are. I'm a woman. I'm a biological woman. If I had a mastectomy in future years, I would still be a woman. I'm a woman in every cell of my body. I'm also legally a woman. And people who have been through the gender recognition process, the gender reassignment, some people will have a birth certificate reissued to them in their new gender. And in law, they will be in their new gender. And when you're writing law about those people, you have to take that into account. That doesn't mean they're identical to me. And a lot of the issues that you're hearing now, I was talking about 3 or 4 years ago. I set up an inquiry into a lot of young girls being moved into trans services, for example. I also raised the sports issue, which is something I feel very strongly about because in my naval career, I compete against men and I always come last.
And you're a professional diver.
Well, not professional, Iain, you're being very kind there. But
a lot of your opponents, particularly in this contest, are bringing this subject up to try and damage you.
Yeah.
And they have, I think Suella Braverman said the other day, that when you were bringing in some gender equality legislation, you insisted on the phrase "people who are pregnant" in the legislation.
Again, I'm sorry to say that is.
I'm just telling you what the accusations are.
I'm not criticising you, Iain. I'm just sorry that this is the kind of thing some of my opponents are doing. That is not true. I had no input onto the drafting of that bill. It was given to me literally the day before it was going to be put through the House. It had been cleared by Cabinet. I had no input into the drafting. But in my stewardship of the bill through the House, I allowed amendments in that amended the bill to
But you didn't put in an amendment yourself, though. Those were amendments from people in the House of Lords, I believe.
They were, but I suggested to the drafters that they put those words in, and they wanted to actually wait for amendments from the Lords because they like to do that, give concessions to the Lords. But I was very happy with that. And what we did was we used the word mother because it's a female word, but it's also legally correct.
Nicola, are you reassured?
No, I'm not, because Penny was the women's minister at the time when GRA reform was proposed, and it was clear that the government wanted self-ID at that point. So, you were the minister, Penny, that led that consultation. So I'm absolutely surprised to hear this, that you now did not support self-ID.
So, Nicola, again, that's not correct. So the Gender Recognition Act was, and the reforms that were proposed were under Justine Greening, and Justine was minister, and then Amber Rudd was the minister, and then I was the minister. And I took the consultation through, but we didn't make any decisions about it. But Nicola, I do understand why this is such a critical issue for women. It is something that I completely understand the points that you raise, and why someone like you would want reassurance from me that I support women-only spaces, and that I don't want any rolling back of women's rights. Every stage of my career, I have fought for women's rights. And if you look at my record in the Equalities Office, I did that. I shifted our focus onto the real issues facing women who are trapped in poverty and low pay because of legacy benefit systems, many other things. And I produced a roadmap for women at every stage of their life.
Nicola, thank you.